So, one of the most common questions that I get about AI is what kind of automation should I put into my business? I hear all kinds of words, workflows, AI agents, even something called multi agent orchestration. So, what's all this mean and what's important and which one should you pick? And I'm going to really simplify it today with some brief examples and show you exactly what you need to pick for your business. Let's jump over to my whiteboard and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So, when we start to think about AI agents or AI automation, there is a lot of confusion. And you will hear people say, well, they haven't really demonstrated any value. They don't really work in our business. They're hype and overblown. I see those comments all over LinkedIn, and they're just not true. They just don't understand what's important about AI and how you put together automations. So, let me kind of walk you through it. When we think about automations, the workhorse, the absolute workhorse, is an automation that is just something that we call a flow automation. And you're going to see that a flow automation is actually just a collection of different nodes that can be positioned. Something input would come in here, some action would be taken, that might be passed to a different variable over here. And then finally, it might reach a conclusion over here. So action comes in, there is something that happens to that content, something happens again, and then you finally see an end result. So a typical example might be you want to create a blog writer. In the blog writer, you put in a topic. The AI agent maybe goes and does research, maybe calls Perplexity or goes to Google and scrapes pages off Google and captures a bunch of information. That enriched information is passed along with your topic to another AI agent, which actually writes the article and then sends it to you in a Gmail folder. Wow, that's a flow automation. These are incredibly useful. In fact, I'm going to tell you that maybe 80+% of all AI automations that make money for businesses today, they're in this category. So if you understand the simple linear flow, you are probably well above most people that are working in AI. So let me kind of show you an example of what that looks like. This is one that's called Dan's Content AI. I actually don't use this, but I built it because I wanted to show you how it actually works. So here we have a trigger, and in that trigger is a user input column. And here I just put in what I want my article to be about, and I could just type in the topic here. It's going to immediately then call Perplexity, and I've written a prompt that says perform research on the topic to enrich the results and use this information provided by the user. So it's going to take that information and then do deep research on Perplexity to find additional information. I've written a big prompt here that's going to inform Perplexity on what to do. Then I've created a node here that actually combines the information. It actually takes this information that I submitted because I might have put in a transcript from a video. I might have put in some snippet from an article that I'd written from a blog. And now it's going to combine it with the research that was actually done by Perplexity. So now we've got Dan's research with enriched content all in one variable. And it's going to be saved as combined information. Because now I can send this down the flow to create one, two, three, four, five different pieces of information, one right after the other. The first one's going to create a LinkedIn post. And so it's going to say, use this combined information to write a LinkedIn post. Here it's going to write a tweet. Here's the thread. Here's an essay. And it's actually going to be written in my style because I actually put an example of the types of essays that I write here, along with how I like to write my essays, which are in skinny paragraphs, like one sentence paragraphs. And then finally, it's going to write a newsletter article, which we're really pushing with clients right now to boost their information on LinkedIn. But you can see that this is just one step after the other, just one linear flow, extremely powerful. In this example, I could put in my information one time and write five different pieces of content. Now, we would recommend that you edit them before you post it, but it basically would get you way ahead of the game. Very, very, very powerful automation and the way to really make money in AI for your business if that's something you build. Now, that's a flow automation. Now, the other one that you're going to hear a lot about is something called an AI agent. Now, what's an agent? Well, typically, an agent would be an AI system that you would have here, and that AI system would have the ability to do some things. For instance, It might have the ability to actually call another AI model. And so it could call an AI model to do some sort of calculation or to write some content. It might also have another tool where it could actually maybe do a Google search. So this is a really kind of classic example. And then maybe it's even got another tool. And this tool actually not only can it do a Google search, but actually it can pull content from Google to actually enrich your content. So this is a typical example of an AI agent. So, unlike a flow, which was linear, an AI agent is you ask a question to a model and then it can call various tools to answer that question and give the response back to the user. Now, you're going to hear a lot of information on LinkedIn, and I see these posts every day. I comment on them, and then I usually get a little bit of hate mail from people that have written the post saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm going to tell you something. I know what I'm talking about. AI agents can be incredibly powerful and they can be very, very important for your business. And I'll show you some examples so that you know why. Probably the classic example is in a copilot. This is a type of knowledge base tool within your business where you can actually search for information related to your business and then return that in a format that can be very, very useful for the user. We have helped companies build these that have been for large customer service organizations where when a phone call comes in, maybe a brand new customer service agent could type in that question, can search the knowledge base, help them formulate an answer based on what the user needed, and present that back to the user in a voice phone call. It's actually pretty darn useful to do that because it helps in training, it helps to find the right answer, it gets the right answer to the user a lot faster. In addition, there's now ambient systems that can actually listen in on the conversation and actually do that for a new customer service agent. So this is a powerful, powerful tool. I'm going to show you kind of a really quick example. This is one that we built for Hill Country Chocolate that helps to pair wine and chocolates. Now, you may think, why would we do that? Well, we have a lot of wineries that come in and they say, hey, I would like to pair our wine with your chocolate. And in the Texas Hill Country, which is the second busiest wine region in the United States, we have a lot of wineries, a lot of different wines, and we make a lot of chocolates at Hill Country Chocolate. So trying to figure out which one to pair with what, at least to get us in the ballpark of having that conversation can be a little bit confusing. So let's just try this out. And again, we're going to do this live. I'm going to say, can you tell me which chocolates would pair best with the red wines from Wild Seed Farms? And I'm going to put their vineyard on here, Wild Seed Farms vineyard, and we're going to see what happens. Okay. Now, again, I haven't tested this ahead of time, so we'll find what happens, but you're going to see it's going to go out and search Wild Seed Farms vineyards red wine. So it's going to use that tool. It's going down to that node and going out to the internet. And it found, looky here, a different set of wines from Wild Seed Farms. Here's the Sangiovese, and it's going to give some examples: Blackberry Mint Bonbon, Garrison Brothers Cut Ganache. It found this Encanto red blend, and it even made a description of what that particular wine tastes like: boysenberry, red plum, and mocha flavors. And it recommended a blueberry and black currant chocolate. I'm going to tell you that's probably correct. Mexican hot chocolate, spicy, which would go really, really well with those kind of flavors. So I think you can see how powerful agents can be. They can actually go out and call tools, they can go find information, and they can formulate an answer back to you. They're not particularly good with automations just yet, but I'm going to show you something pretty cool in just a minute. So this is an example of an internal tool that we can use, but AI agents can actually be external tools too. So if you go to the Hill Country Chocolate website and you click the little button down here in the right-hand corner, you're going to open up our virtual assistant at the chocolate factory that we call Gigi. Gigi is built and trained on the systems at Hill Country Chocolate, including all the products and the wines, our shipping, all the customer information, how to do, order multiple products, all the questions that you want to do. And Gigi can actually pull those resources to help to formulate an answer. Gigi can even send a notification to our customer service folks that people are having trouble getting a question answered. Very, very powerful. Another example of an agent. And just to show you one step further, these agents can actually be voice agents. So in Gigi's case, she's actually either an AI agent where it's all text, or she can actually be speech to text, or she can actually be voice to voice. All of those things can be programmed into an AI agent. Very, very powerful. Almost every business in the United States probably needs some kind of system in place. So when you hear that agents are not useful in business, that's just not true. Okay. So let's go back to the board and show you one more thing. Because I told you that when you're trying to create a task or create output, flow automations actually probably work the best. When you're looking for information, AI agents probably work the best. But you can actually combine them. And this is relatively new technology. I mean, it's been around for a year or so, but to be honest with you, it didn't work very well. And because of that, a lot of people said, oh, agents can actually do work for your business. But let me show you kind of how this works because really it's a little bit different. In this case, you're going to hear this term, so we might as well learn it. It's called multi-agent orchestration. And what this means is that you can have groups of agents put together. So almost like a combination of these two. So let me see if I can draw it out for you so you can see how this would work. In this example, you would have an input. We're going to draw kind of an oval. And that input would actually go over to an AI agent. And so we're going to just do something kind of like that. But this is not your normal agent. And in fact, this is something a little bit different. And I'm going to title it here just so we can kind of keep track. This is going to be called the orchestrator. And the orchestrator's job is basically to be the person that just sort of manages all of the other AI agents that are underneath it. So now the orchestrator can do some things. It can actually call other AI agents. So, for instance, it could actually call an AI agent that's responsible for writing content. And so, this particular agent, that's its job. It's just a writer. And this orchestrator could actually send a message to this writer. Now, this particular agent could actually do some things. They might have a knowledge base, in which case they could access a knowledge base. They would have access to maybe an AI model that they could use to create the content. In other words, they're a fully functional AI agent on their own. So the orchestrator is actually calling this kind of AI agent, which is fully functional. And I'm going to just kind of cheat here. I'm just going to copy this, move it over here. And in so doing, I'm going to show you that you could actually do the same thing. The orchestrator could call a different agent. And in this time, instead of being a writing agent, maybe this is an email agent. And so this one would actually use an AI model to write an email and then to actually formulate that content into an email and actually send it out to a user. So this is starting to get a little complicated, but let me walk you through it just so you can see it in action. Here, you would put in an input. In my case, maybe I want it to do a couple things. I want it to write me an article and then email it to myself or email it to someone else. And I just send that information here over to this orchestrator agent. The orchestrator looks at that and says, well, we got to do some things. First thing we need to do is we actually need to write the article. So it reaches down to the writer and says, hey, write me an article on this content. The writer does research, goes out to Google, enriches the content, all the things we've shown you so far, and actually writes a very good article based on the content that I suggested. It sends that content back up to the orchestrator and says, guess what? My job's done. I did my job. It's up to you now. The orchestrator then says, well, I need to email it to the user. So it sends it down to an email agent who says, well, I need to write an email first. And so let me write an email. Oh, wait a minute. I need the email address. So it reaches back up to the orchestrator and says, hey, did they send you an email address? Orchestrator says, yes, I'll give you the email address. That gets put into the email. And then it says, well, wait a minute, I'm supposed to send the article. So it reaches back out to the orchestrator and says, hey, can I have that article? The orchestrator, who has it in their memory, sends it down to the email agent. The email agent says, great. Now I've error tested. I've got the email address, I've written the email, and now I can send the email out to the user. And so it actually sends the email. So as you can see, this one orchestrator can command a whole host of different agents. Now, I've written it very simple here, but this can get really, really, really complicated. For instance, you could say, do research on all 50 states on how Medicaid pays for durable medical equipment. You could put that request into here, send it out to an orchestrator. An orchestrator could send it to an agent that says, just create me a research plan. I don't actually want you to do any research. Just tell me how you would do it. And a research planner would then come in and go, hey, I think you need to look at all 50 states. I think you're going to need a bunch of different agents. I think you need to look at these 25 different elements to understand how this payment process works. Here are some things you need to be careful about, and sends the plan back up to the orchestrator. The orchestrator can then look and say, well, wow, to complete that, I actually need maybe 10 different agents that are actually looking at 5 states on their own to get all 50 states looked at. And so this orchestrator could spin up those 10 different agents, and each of those agents could go out and do research on the 5 different states. All of that information could be turned back to the orchestrator. The orchestrator could then send it to a report writing agent, which would take all of that information, put it into a report, and send it back to the orchestrator. The orchestrator could then say, well, I need you to send it to the user. And then, of course, we can send it just like we do the email. All of that could happen kind of in parallel at the same time. So research agents are really built for these multi-agent orchestrations. In the future, you could actually use this orchestrator to call this workflow, to actually send this entire workflow. You could use it to look for knowledge. This can be a very powerful system. So let me give you a little bit of taste of how this works. So this is a platform called N8N, very common, no code platform. And actually, this is the way this works. Here, a chat message would come in. It goes to an AI agent that is connected to an AI model, in this case, OpenAI. And what we're going to do here is we're going to ask the agent to actually write an article on a food topic in the style of Save Your magazine, one of my favorite food magazines. And then we're going to have you email it to the user, the person that's actually requesting it. And so it's very similar to what I just described. This AI agent is the orchestrator. They're going to get that request. They're going to send it down to a food magazine writer. That food magazine writer AI is going to write the article, send it back up to the agent, and then they're going to say, hey, we need to email it out. So they're going to send it down to the article email tool, which is going to write the email and then send it out via Gmail. And you may think that sounds crazy, but let's see if we can pull it off. So we'll say, write an article, and we need some really cool topic. How about hazelnuts and their use in confections from Italy, since it's Save Your, and send it to docdano@gmail.com. That way I'm not annoying anybody with my testing, okay? I'm going to click send, and we're going to see what happens. Oh, it sent it over to the agent, and then it stopped, okay? Why did it stop? Well, it's because this agent is an orchestrator, and it's going to say, I'll have our food magazine writer create a Save Your style article about hazelnuts and the use in Italian confections. Would you like this emailed to you when it's complete? So it's doing just a little bit of a check. And so I'm just going to put yes. Okay. So now it's sending it down to the food magazine writer. That food magazine writer is actually writing that article that I asked it to do. And you can see it spinning away. And so now the article's written, send it back up to the agent. They've sent it down to the email tool. The email tool is now writing the email to me and, formulating, and it just clicks send to Gmail. And this person has said done, and they're sending me a note back saying, yep, it's been done. It's been emailed. So what happens now? Well, let's go over to my email and let's just see. Well, looky there. Save Your style article, hazelnuts and Italian confections. Dear food enthusiasts, I'm pleased to share with you a specifically crafted food article written in the evocative style of Save Your magazine. Explores the integral role of hazelnuts play in Italian confections. And then here's the article, perfectly formatted. Hazelnuts of Italy, the art and soul of confections from Piedmont to Sicily. And there's the actual article. Warm regards, your email multi-agent AI writer. So I think you sort of see how this works. These can be powerful, powerful tools for you to use in your business. So when you hear people say, oh, things are overhyped, they're not really working for businesses, the only one that really works are flow automations, that's just not true. And I hope you can take a little bit away from this today and realize these can be extremely powerful for your business. Any questions or want to learn how these work in a little bit more detail, be sure to reach out to me, and I hope you've enjoyed this video.